what does it mean when they call someone a person of interest? Joining us this morning is Clint Van Zandt, NBC News analyst and former FBI profiler. Clint, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you.
And we're going to get into each of these cases, but before we do that, can you give us the definition of a person of interest and what it means in terms of that person's rights when it comes to the investigation?
Sure, and the person of interest, this is somewhat of a slippery term. I think it really came into vogue after the 2001 anthrax case. At that time, the then Attorney General of the United States wanted to characterize a U.S. scientist who may or may not have had some role in that as a person of interest. I think we were gun-shy to start to call somebody either a suspect or a subject, so person of interest became kind of a politically correct way to say, this is a person we're looking at, but we don't want to give the impression to the media that we've zeroed in on one person. You know, in all honesty, law enforcement, I think, didn't want to get sued, too. But, Amy, we're kind of looking at a ladder of suspects where we first call somebody a person of interest, then we may call them a suspect, and then when you get to the subject level, it's those latter two terms, I think, where law enforcement feels an obligation to start advising a person of their rights, and that many times is where an individual feels the need to get an attorney to start protecting their rights.
Right. Let's talk about Susan Powell. More specifically, he took his sons. He says he took his sons on a camping trip the night she went missing. He's been quiet. He hasn't spoken to police. I'm imagining that's a red flag that goes up with investigators. He's now reportedly selling his home, moving his children 900 miles away from the search to Washington State. Is someone who is a person of interest allowed to do that in the middle of an investigation?
Well, they are, but what is their motive for doing this? I mean, we know he lost his job in this particular area, but, you know, to the general public, to law enforcement investigators, this is kind of Scott Peterson-esque. You know, we remember Scott Peterson, the individual who was convicted of killing his pregnant wife, Lacey, in the California area, and shortly after she went missing, her husband was selling the car, selling the house, moving on with his life, changed his physical appearance. It's like that chapter in a marriage had been closed, and we see that same thing taking place here.
Gabriel Johnson, 8 months old, missing since the holidays. His mother, Elizabeth, has a history of violent behavior. She may have bipolar disorder, but she is not the person of interest in this case. A couple from Arizona is. What's the connection there?
Well, it appears in this case that she was trying to give the baby over. You know, again, you see this maternal instinct two different ways. Number one, she's reporting to the biological father that she had killed the baby, even though the baby had been seen after she made that statement. But here she is, perhaps trying to give the child to somebody else who wanted the baby. Now that child is missing, and law enforcement is saying, we don't know if that couple has that child or not. Obviously, they've been interviewed, but they may have more information. And Amy, you get to the point where you can only deal with the people closest to the victim when the victim disappeared. That's kind of where that person of interest term wraps its arms around the case, too.
All right, Clint Van Zandt, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
We want to switch gears now, get another check of the weather.